your book.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, like the other books that I've written, it had a life of its own in a way. It kind of found me, and I always like to tell a story about Silently Seduced when I have a chance, because I didn't know I could write, and I started writing. My first professional article was on the relationship between sex addiction and alcoholic families and enmeshment, covert incest. But I was writing my dissertation, and which was boring me to no end. And I had a dream about Silently Seduced. I saw the chapter titles, I saw the title of the book, and I was compelled. So I went up to the fourth level of the graduate library where I was supposed to be writing my dissertation. I started writing the book, and I couldn't put it down. I couldn't put it down. It just was compelling. So it really opened the door for me to begin to think about the ideas that I had been thinking about. And one of them was the topic of Light in the Dark, which is adult children of sex addicts. So when I first was exposed to the field of sex addiction, it was through Patrick's book. I found his book, which at the time was titled The Sexual Addiction, not Out of the Shadows. And I had one of the original 5,000 copies sitting on my shelf. And I opened the book and to the family section, and I read it in the bookstore. And I thought, oh my God, that's my family. And it changed my life, both personally and professionally. And I never looked back. But I thought to myself at that time that somebody should write a book on the children who grew up in these families and what happens to them in adulthood, which was me. Well, they didn't quite have the words for it, and I knew I wasn't alone. So that sat and germinated in me for the longest time, and I rehearsed the book in my head for many, many, many years, because that was in, gosh, I'm really dating myself. That was in 1989. That I ran into, or 87, somewhere around there, I ran into that book. So since the late 80s. And in this case, my co-authors, Dr. Meyer and Culle Vande, they found me. Because occasionally, I was losing the steam to write these by myself. And so I would occasionally announce in the classes, anybody who wants to write, let me know. I want to write this book, but I need some help. And so they cornered me one day and sat me down and said, we're in. And I didn't know them. They didn't know each other. And off we went. And, it was a journey to have three people writing a book who didn't know each other, who all had different ideas about how it should go. But in the end, I think we made the right decision. And that was that the book would exclusively tell the story of adult children of sex addicts and not sort of merge it into other models. Because, my story has never been told, my personal story. I've never told anybody my personal story. In detail, parts of it in different therapies, models, and so forth. But nobody ever said, well, an adult child of a sex addict has this symptom profile. But if you go to an adult child of alcoholics, there's the profile, and they say, oh my God, they've been following me around. And nobody's done that with adult children of sex addicts. And so I felt strongly it needed to be done. So we really worked hard together as one voice. I thought we did a good job there. Wasn't easy. I'm sure they were saying the same thing, but we did it.
So in this book, you reveal all of your story.
Well, so that was the thing. So it was I thought that if I was going to write this book, I had to tell my story. There was no way I was going to ask the reader to tell their story and not tell my story, because I know how difficult it was.
What was that like for you?
It was difficult, and it was shameful. I had that old shame come up that wasn't mine, but it was carry shame, or what do the IFS folks call it? I forget, burden, legacy burdens. They have labels, labels for everything, and it's wonderful. So I have my legacy burden. I felt that, and so that was the thing I asked my co-writers: "Says, look, if you want to write this book, I think we should tell our stories." And they were in it, and I was so appreciative of that. And And I think that really is the spirit of the book, is that, okay, if you're an adult child, somebody has to start the process.